felt like the Aiyuk moments, there was like 2 or 3 Aiyuk questions were more interesting than the Trey Lance conversation because he got asked about the 5th-year option. He wasn't even asked about an extension. And the 5th-year option for Aiyuk is $14 million for 2024, and those options are due on Monday. And the question was like, well, you had to make a decision. McGlinchey, you can't keep McGlinchey and Trent. That one wasn't a decision. You had to make a decision. Buckner or Armstead. Is this kind of the same thing? And Lynch, I heard the question, didn't really think much of it. And then Lynch got kind of uncomfortable, and he said, I'm not going to go into specifics on people, but we love him, and we're excited about him being on this team. I think that one he said, that's a good question. It's fair. I understand why you're asking that. But, he got a little antsy just at the question about the 5th-year option that made it hard for him to answer as clearly as he answered, like when the question about Nick Bosa came up. And he said, yeah, we are not taking any calls on Nick Bosa. But it felt a little uneasy when it came to Brandon Aiyuk.
Yeah, I was pulling up Deebo Samuel's cap hit in 2024 is 28.5. Okay. And his dead cap's 26 and his cash is 21. Deebo Samuel's on this team next year, obviously, right? For the next, he's going to be play for 23 and 24. Deebo Samuel's not going anywhere. So if you just factor in the number, assuming you can't extend, I mean, they gave Hargrave 4 years, $80 million, 40 guaranteed, and his salary cap hit this year is 6. So, like, obviously no team manipulates the cap quite like the Rams are up there, but the Niners, the Eagles. To extend.
You like to extend and have next year, 2024, be $9 million cap hit.
Now, here's my question. Deebo Samuel got a 3-year, $70 million extension. Now, obviously, that was now a year old, and by the time you would extend Aiyuk, who I'm sorry, if Nick Bosa doesn't get extended after year 3, you don't get extended after year 3. So it's an easy one for the 49ers. Like, listen, this is how we do business. We said it last year with Bosa. We've said it before. You're not as good as him. You get fall into that category. I do think Brandon Aiyuk goes, well, see how much wide receivers are getting paid? Christian Kirk, who actually was really good for Trent Baalke, got a contract a couple years ago people thought was insane. I guess it was a year ago. And actually turned out to be pretty good. But like average receivers get 15, 16 million. If you ever hit the open market or can force a trade and get an extension, I would say Brandon Aiyuk, you and I have talked about this before, it's getting over $20 million.
Well, who's better right now if they're both available? Odell Beckham or Brandon Aiyuk?
Brandon Aiyuk.
Right. And Odell got what, 15 million?
Yeah. So
as a true free agent.
I
Not
think,
in like some trade with team control, 5th-year option, then we negotiate an extension. A true free agent.
Now, a lot can change in terms of like, what if he has an enormous season? You're like, this is insane. We just got to figure out a way to keep him. But I do think you could look at it like, listen, we used the 27th pick on him. We got 4 years out of him. Can we flip him for pick 24? And next year, because Trent Williams is old, and how the hell do you get a left tackle? They don't exist. The only way you could, what if you had pick 24 and 28 and you package those to get to 12, something like that. So you think big picture like that. You use Brandon Aiyuk to get another position.
Or you package him for a player.
Is more valuable. But who trades a left tackle, really?
Well,
pretty
the
rare.
football team, yeah, the contract situations, right? The Ravens did it. The Dolphins did it.
I mean, it happens, but it's usually a weird situation, I would say. Tends to be. I just think this Brandon Aiyuk situation is a weird red flag. I don't... because
John Lynch's answer was a weird red flag.
Now, it's weird, right? Because he's not good enough to get treated like Bosa or Aiyuk, or Trent Williams or something, just publicly. Like, I'm cool with like... but he's definitely closer to your 10th best player than he is like your 30th. You could argue he might be if we just broke it down. Maybe it's just an economical, like we just can't pay all these skill guys. We can find another guy like him. I also think independent in a vacuum, like, is he worth some massive contract if you have a lot of other high-paid guys? I think it's fair to ask that question.
Yeah, I mean, you could argue on another
I like
team,
him. I want him on my team.
Everyone does. But you could argue on another team, he's a 95 catch, 12 touchdown guy, but that he might not be able to be that on this team with Christian McCaffrey, with Deebo Samuel, with George Kittle. They're just not going to be 95 balls for him when he's not like a 50-50 downfield ball receiver, right? Now he does make contested catches because he got long arms, he can jump. So he's a
very
target
skilled player.
He is. And I think he's in some ways more valuable than even 78 catches looks, right? Like, him and Amari both had 78 catches. Give me Aiyuk all day long, right? To this team.
Well, one of the things I read this article, I think the Athletic.
Juice. That's right.
I think the Athletic did this breakdown a month ago of the Carolina Panthers and Bears negotiations.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things the Panthers were big on, like, if you get because they asked for the 3 players, right? We want one of the 3 players, DJ Moore, Burns, or Derek Brown. And they're like, well, they put a hierarchy, right? Like, it's so much harder to get a sweet defensive tackle or a sweet defensive end than it is DJ Moore. And we love DJ Moore. So if, like, to do this trade, we have to give up one of these 3. The only guy we're willing to give up is the wide receiver. But we also value the wide receiver in this trade. Like, you're not getting 3 first-rounders and this guy. Like, this guy's going to count almost. He's under contract as a first-rounder. I think you could just go, listen, what if we just get another good year at Aiyuk? Our team's another good year. Could you get pick somewhere 22 to 28? They got, I forget the exact pick, 22, 21, 23. Remember, Hollywood Brown went for that. And Aiyuk is a more consistent human being. I would say he's probably more well thought of around the league. Like, they're getting a pick in the 20s for another playoff team. That just
Didn't Hollywood Brown want out? Yeah, there was an issue. Hollywood Brown didn't like the offense.
It was bitching him on. In fairness, I don't think it's not a great passing offense. Now, you also got 2 years of him, but you didn't have to extend him. You would, after the 4th year, you would trade for Aiyuk and extend him, I would imagine. Mm-hmm. But I do think you get a first-round pick for him.
Yeah, I agree.
Again, he'd have to another, I would say, what do you say, 80, 1,100, 7, 8. Just looks like he looks.
Looks like he looks.
I don't think you can argue that that's on the table. Like, that's because one thing he said is, like, we're going to have a big year this year.
We're trying to do something special this year, and Brandon Aiyuk's going to be a big part of that. And then he kind of paused and was like, and beyond, we'll take that as it comes. So
I do think it would be insane if they didn't pick up his 5th-year option. Do you agree with that?
How could you not pick up his 5th-year option? What would be the value?
I don't know, but why wouldn't, like, what's there really to talk about? Like, I get that Veach was asked, like, are you going to pick up Clyde's 5th-year option? He's like, he did the classic Lynch, like, we got to get through the draft. The answer is no, right? Kinlaw, the answer is no.
Right.
Couldn't Lynch have just said, listen, Kinlaw, we got to talk to him. We got to figure that out. Of course we're going to pick up Aiyuk. Like,
weird.
Do you think it's a 100% lock that they're picking up the 5th-year option?
Yeah. Yes.
I agree in theory and in, like, substance of what we've seen, but the way he answered it, he didn't give that answer.
No, the only way that answer would make sense is if he's like, he just committed. I haven't talked to everybody, because then he says, yes, we're picking up Aiyuk's. And then Kinlaw's agent calls. So you already made the decision on Aiyuk? We haven't heard from you guys. And he's just like, we're telling everybody.
Yeah, he's got 2 guys to deal with. One guy, does he really deserve, like,
yeah, I know.
I don't know.
But that's how they operate. But you're right. You're right. He didn't say it. When they said, what about Bosa? He said, that hotline is closed and was never open.
But you do treat Steph Curry different than Jordan Poole.
100%. Nick Bosa's special. But he gave a very clear answer on Nick Bosa. He talked about being transparent with Trey Lance about phone calls they get. The Aiyuk answer was the cloudiest answer.
I do think, like,
was cloudier than the Trey Lance answers.
I'd argue, like, in our lifetime, like, Bryant Young, Patrick Willis. Bowman had, like, a year. Bosa's, like, one of the best defensive players the 49ers have had in my life, not counting, like, some of the Walsh guys in the 80s that I didn't watch, right? He's just, even I saw Steve Keim.
Dave Wilcox. Justin Wilcox's dad just passed away.
Oh, that was his dad?
That's his dad, yeah. And he was a Niner linebacker, like, way back in the day.
Isn't he in the Ring of Honor? Or no?
I don't know if he's in the Ring of Honor. He's in the Hall of Fame.
The Niners Hall of Fame.
No, the NFL Pro Football Hall of Fame. He went in as, like, a senior committee member in 2000. And I read this quote from Butkus, because it was, I guess one of the things was, like, he was the greatest, like, one of the greatest players no one really talks about. Is kind of like what like when you read those old articles from, like, 2000. And Butkus is like, he's the greatest outside linebacker to ever play the game, is what Butkus said, like, in 2000.
I'd love to get Belichick on it.
Belichick has some Dave Wilcox days?
Not only did I not know that was his dad, I just honestly don't know anything about the player. And
I didn't know a lot about him either until.
And I would say there are enough guys in like the 60s and 70s that you've never watched that aren't like Stabler or Lynn Swan that you've just heard a name. Like, I'm telling you, this guy could fucking play. I don't feel like we ever hear that name. Might be the most under-talked about, if that is true. Great player in the last 60 years, no one ever utters a word about.
Yeah.
Because he's not playing good teams?
Well, how good were those Niners teams playing at Kezar Stadium?
Probably doesn't feel like great.
Something. Are you thinking that you don't? Would there be a benefit to not picking up the 5th-year option?
No.
If you were to trade him this week, Aiyuk. If you're the acquiring team, would you prefer that his option? You would then have the option to pick up the option, right?
Here's what I would say.
Like last year, the Panthers didn't pick it up on. Oh no, they did 2 years ago on Darnold.
I would not be in the business of trying to do like if you told me, hey, the Giants will trade their 1st-round pick for Brandon Aiyuk, given what's on the line in 2023, like that's just a no for me. Do you agree?
I agree. Yeah, I didn't get the impression he was about to do it. I don't think he's about to do it this year.
But there were probably some teams that might give their 1st-round pick this year for Brandon Aiyuk. Like you can do it right now.
Given that you get 2 years of him.
Would not do it, would you?
Well, Brandon Aiyuk would go have like 55 catches for the Giants.
Would you do a team's like, I'll give you my 1st-round pick this year and my 2nd-round pick next year, something like that?
I would not. And the reason I would not is you have been searching for your quarterback of the Kyle Shanahan era since Kyle Shanahan got here. You now think maybe you've got him in Brock Purdy. You need to do everything you possibly can to set that guy up for success in 2023.
Beside the Chiefs, I would say the teams you're competing. I'd say that beside the Chiefs, the teams you're competing against, I mean, truly competing against, acquire, not get rid of.
Yeah.
And if they get rid of, it's like, well, fuck, we had to. You think we wanted to lose Hargrave? We had to fucking give Jalen all this money. It's not like the Niners are like, yeah, we're just. It'd be like one of those overthink moves that they kind of like doing every once in a while. Like they have done it.
Like you don't do it until
Belichick
you
did
have
it.
to do it, right? The Chiefs had to do it with Tyreek.
And Belichick always had Brady because Belichick never had to do some of them, but he did them. And I feel like the Niners kind of like doing that. Like we don't have to do it, but we'll show you.
Yeah.
I bet they've talked about it.
But the point of this conversation is they might have to do it next year.
Yeah, let's just get to next year with the guy.
You won't take a team-friendly extension and whatever, right? $14 million and 20. What'd you say? $22 million for Debo?
25.6 or 28.5. I mean, 28.5.
Luckily, their QB room next year will cost $700,000.
But even I'd say if you got Aiyuk's down to like 6 or 7, you're giving 2 guys $30+ million of a $210 million. Like that is a lot. The cap space, 2 guys. Kittle's cap number's not tiny. At least those guys are good though.
Maybe they look at it like you trade Aiyuk for first, you keep Jennings for cheap, and then you try and draft your number 2, or you do something else at that number 2 spot.
Maybe they're bullish on old Danny Gray.
Yeah, thank you. First one that came to mind was Amendola.
Yeah, I know he doesn't catch many, but you guys see his tackles on punt team? If he can translate that into offense, fucking, we have Aiyuk.
I know this, like, there's not a world where CeeDee Lamb is on the Cowboys, right? He's getting a contract extension.
But Debo was that. Like, Debo wasn't leaving, right?
That's true. Have your number 2 guy.
Bose ain't leaving. Fred ain't leaving. He is in that camp where it's like, I like him, and I don't want him to leave, but, like, we'll listen.
Yeah, well, can your core be 11 players?
No, the Chiefs is like 3.
Right.
It just happens one of them's the quarterback.
Fred Warner. How many, like, what is the Niners core right now? It's big, right? It's Warner, Williams, Bosa, Kittle, Debo, Juice. McCaffrey, thank you. Aiyuk, that's 8. We haven't even mentioned a quarterback.
I mean, Greenlaw might not be sitting at the main table, but he's part of the group, right? He's under contract.
Hell yeah, Greenlaw.
Ward. Do you mention Ward?
Charvarius.
Yeah, I mean, fuck. Robbie Gold when he returns.
Probably go when he comes back. I mean,
I haven't seen yet. Is Robbie signed this big deal?
no, I think he's still shopping offers.